All right, first up, what was that P word that we learned in the last class? Properties, right? Do you guys remember all the properties? What was it? What was this one?
No.
The commutative says you can switch the order, right? What was this one? Associative, the parentheses, right, Brian? What about this one? Distributive identity, right? It's like your mirror, a span hole, no? And then what about inverse? Yeah, and then the last one was easy, right? Zero. Okay, so if you can remember the words, then you're halfway there. Then you just have to remember what they mean, right? So let's take a look at that homework. And did you make the appointment? Okay, just hang out. If you want to follow along with what we're doing, you've probably already seen it. Who'd you have for algebra last year? What school? Oh, okay. Yeah. All right. We'll get that sorted out. Sorry. I'll try not to bore you. So let's hear from Mukadas. What did your group decide was the best answer for example 2? Identity property, maybe. What was the identity property? You said we remembered it because how did we remember the identity property? Oh, hold on a second. Oh. Come on, technology, don't do that to me. Come on. Wants to play like that. That's how it wants to play. Oh, come on. There we go. Alright, so remember how I remembered? The identity property said can't change your identity, right? So your number doesn't change. But if we look at this example, did the number change? Kind of. I think there might be a better answer. Let's hear from Roger. It's not the identity property. Can you think of another one that it might be? Roger. Inverse. Why do you say the inverse, Roger? Look back on the back of the notes. What did the inverse say? Inverse is like the opposite. Can you see how it looks a lot like this one down here? Oops. You see how it looks a lot like this one down here? You have a number and then it got flipped underneath, like the opposite. So over here on the homework, you see how this was in the bottom and it got flipped to the top? It's like the inverse, right? We just switched it around. So yes, it is the inverse. Now, unfortunately, I can't give you the card, Roger, because you had to get help from your group, which is good, but I can't give you the card. So we'll have to keep going. Inverse, why do we say it's the inverse? What was the O word? We said it's kind of like the opposite. So if you didn't get that down, I'd fill that in now. That's the inverse property. Okay? This was tricky down here. Which of the following statements is not always true? Jesus, what do you think? A, B, C, or D? Which is not true? C? That's all right. How about Jonathan? Where's Jonathan? Jonathan.
B.
B? Why B? I don't know. B is right. No, B is correct.
B is correct.
B is the right answer. But why? What do you think, Lisette? Oh, they don't necessarily equal each other. But wait, all I did was switch the order. What do you think, Hafsa? Oh, maybe depending on what n is, maybe this side would be negative, maybe that side would be positive. Right? Depends on what n is, but we don't know. When are you allowed to switch the order? Can you do it for subtraction? No, only for multiply and addition. Right now, we're subtracting. If this were plus, good. If it was times, fine. Can't do it for subtraction. So this one is not true. Right? What property is this an example of? What happened? Did we change? We had 2ab squared minus 4. 2ab squared minus 4. Did we change there?
Yeah.
No, this is the same. That is the exact same as that. So what property says you can't change, right? It's the identity property. So that's why it's always true. Because the identity property says you can multiply anything times 1 and it won't change. What about C? Look at those. What do you notice about these two? They cancel. They're almost like opposites, right? You see how one's positive and one's negative? So what property is dealing with opposites? Inverse. That's the inverse property. All right. This one's ugly. Yeah, D is ugly. Can you see what property that is? Yeah, it's a distributive property. Look, we got a group. We have somebody multiplying the group. So, can you see how they just distributed? Right? Here's the 4y cubed, there, and there. We distribute the 4y cubed. Okay? So that's why those are true. All right. Down here, I saw some people that had some questions about this one. They're like, oh, I don't understand it. This is really the same thing that we've been doing. They just wrote it different. Instead of writing it side by side, they wrote it on top of each other. So what I gave you a hint was to compare one step at a time. So what I like to do is just ignore just look at the first two steps. Our job is to, the steps used to simplify an expression are shown. So they give you this. You need to identify the property that justifies each step. So just look at this. And ask yourself, what is different from the first line to the second line? What changed?
The number.
The numbers? What did the parentheses change?
No.
The order changed, right? What property says you can switch the order? The commutative property. All they did was they switched. Whoops. All they did was they switched the order of these two. So that's the commutative property. All right, so then we look at the next step. This time, I only want to focus on one step at a time. This one's tricky. Right. What changed? It's kind of almost sort of What's the only thing that's different from this line to that line?
Just different.
Just the parentheses, right? You can change the parentheses, right? If you take your parentheses, there's no parentheses here, and then they added parentheses there, they changed the groups. So that's the associative. That was tricky. And some of you, I think, we're already looking at what the next step is going to be. Remember, we're just looking at one line at a time. So now if we only look at these next two. Okay, what's different now?
I don't think so.
Is the 4y different?
No.
No, but what happened over here?
Change
It had the 8x plus negative 8x turned into 0. What is it when things cancel? That's the inverse. You see how these two are the opposite? Opposites cancel to give you 0. Alright, so this is an example of what's the property for opposites? Inverse. Last one. Again, just focus on, let me see if I can do something real quick. Just focus on the bottom two. What changed? What's different from this line to that line?
Nothing.
Nothing changed, right?
That's nothing.
So that's the identity property. 4y plus 0 is still 4y. The 4y didn't change at all.
It doesn't.
So that's which property again? The identity. That's tricky. That's tricky. Alright. Any questions about that homework? If you didn't get it, make sure you have it correct now, right? Because that's going to be what you want to study from when we're doing some of these other problems.